Today I'm going to be using this old bed that I DIY'd Callie to create a DIY Pet Porch Potty, and I'm going to be testing out this Ryobi Impact Rated Driving Kit, which is a 70 piece that the Home Depot in Prospective program sent over to me. My first impression right when I opened this guy up, it's completely different than any of the other drill bit kits that I have. It has like a modular case for easy removal and storage of bits. And no, I'm not missing one. I actually was using that for a project and I lost it. Now, what is torsion zone? The 2-inch bits actually feature it. It absorbs the high torque for more demanding applications and helps to preserve the bit tips. This 70-piece Ryobi bit set comes in a variety of socket adapters, nut drivers, fillet bits, and bit holders. And I personally don't really use impact drivers, but I wanted to test this out because these are built to withstand the increased demands of impact drivers. And y'all know I like to learn new tools, so I might as well dive into these new bits as well. If you guys are interested in building this bed, I will link the tutorial for you, but I decided to take this apart and use the wood for not only this porch potty project, but for 3 other projects I have going on as well. Super fun fact, when you go back and take apart old builds, you start to really question what in the absolute name of woodworking were you doing? Apparently I loved to use wood putty because I could not find any of the screws for a little bit until I went in with like a drill bit to like drill and hit the screw. I don't even know what's happening right now. When I located all of the screws, I grabbed my impact driver and my first tip and I put it in wrong. It just shot right out, so that was fun. This is just a fun learning experience so far. With my other drill bit tips, I'm not going to lie, they have stripped down so easy, or like for some reason the screw just gets stripped and it is a mess and a half. I get really frustrated with that, but I did not have that issue with these tips. You know what I love about the heat is it brings in the most just random guests to my workshop.
Ooh, no. Dragonfly. In my workshop.
Once I took the bed apart, I assessed what I needed, and I only needed 4 2x4s from this project, and they were underneath those 2x6s that you saw me remove. And then I decided to plane those down just to make it a little bit more like chic and flat and smooth. This build is basically the build from the ForRent.com one with a couple of different changes and tweaks on my behalf, so I will link that for you. But before I screwed together the 4 pieces of the base together that I stained off camera, I took these 1x2s, cut them down. I didn't even measure, to be completely honest, just to give the base of the base somewhere to rest on to stop, essentially. The size of the bed is completely dependent on your space and size of dog. I kind of made it twice the size of Callie just to give her an area to pee or poop if she needed. So at this point you're like, where are you going to be going with this? You have to add support because your dog is essentially standing on top of this with a tub underneath it so the pee can be caught somewhere. We will be using dowels as support, and I definitely think the more the merrier. You want these to be flush with the top of the 2x4 of that frame, so I went in and just traced with a pencil the thickness, the depth, the length of each one and where I wanted it, and I just went in with my multi-tool to remove that little piece. Looking back, I would definitely not notch it out all the way. I would leave like a little sliver where you can see it from the outside, that way you don't see the ends of the dowels. As I mentioned before, I am using an early American stain by Varathane, and you don't have to stain them by any means. I did also treat them with an exterior poly just so I can resist moisture since, you know, she's peeing and all the things in here. Here's the part that you have to see what works for you. You want to drill out a hole big enough for a pipe to drain everything out of, and now you can choose whatever side because you might have to run it off a patio. I actually don't really need to run it off anywhere. I will be capping it because I'll explain that later. After I had that hole drilled for the drainage, I added my base that I just ripped down with some material I had on hand. We'll be covering it up with some heavy duty tarp so you can realistically use like any type of wood right here. I flipped it over and then grabbed my pipe that I used. I've linked everything down below. That way you guys can kind of see the names of it, or you're not sure where to find it in your local Home Depot. And I placed that pipe where I needed that excess to kind of hang off for my cap. I would recommend to have it flush for people that don't need to cap it, and I just traced where I needed to drill on the base. After I drilled the hole on the base, I did a dry fit just to make sure that everything was looking good. When I put the pipe in, I was just sitting there looking and like, how is the pea gonna get into that pipe if there's that little lip? So I decided to cut that off with a PVC cutter and just make it nice and flush so everything could run right into it. The ForRent.com tutorial puts everything together, so you literally just rinse the entire thing and you can't get in there. I wanted to make it so you can take the top off if needed. I took those 1x2s and created a frame a little bit bigger than the base, and then I mitered 4 at 45 degrees angles just to create a cleaner topping, so everything just looked a little bit more put together. I flipped that upside down and measured what it would be within that framing, because that's what I'm going to be cutting down this AstroTurf to. Like I said before, I have linked everything down below for you. I got this turf because it already has holes within it. If yours does not, you have to make sure to drill physical holes to have this drain properly. We have turf in our backyard currently, so Callie knew automatically what it was, and I'm not even kidding. The minute that I rolled this out, it was like, oh, you're bringing the outside in? Perfect, exactly what I needed for a bed. I measured, but I also used this base piece as just like a straight edge guide because I found cutting this is way more difficult than flipping it over and using a brand new flat edge razor to cut it out. After cutting that out, I went ahead and stained the top frame pieces and then put that together just like I did with the base, just basically screwing the 4 pieces together in a rectangle, since these aren't even measurements if we're getting all detailed. Instead of screwing the top mitered pieces into the top frame, I decided to use some wood glue and my nail gun. Since I'm going to be stapling things into the back of this frame, I wanted the wood glue just to sit for a little bit, so I moved back to finishing the base of this. I continued to use my nail gun to secure the base to those 1x2s that I told you to cut out earlier to put on the inside of the frame. And then cut out some heavy duty tarp and line the bottom by attaching this tarp with a staple gun all the way around nice and securely to create the waterproofing, or the pea proofing, I should say, really. But you could also use a tub of some sort. I've seen this done a lot of different ways. I just like the idea of being able to like remove this tarp and put a new one down if needed. I placed the pipe in after I laid the tarp down and secured it fully. I didn't have any silicone on hand, which I would recommend. I just went in with some hot glue, which it burnt the tarp a little bit, but there was no leakage anywhere. I personally wanted to add 2 handles on each side just so I can move it around a little bit easier versus like picking it up and having the pea grass touch me potentially, or like holding it out and tripping, because that's probably what would happen. After I added those handles, I placed the dowels right in those slots, and then we're going to move to finishing the top frame. I flipped the top frame upside down and then flipped that turf upside down as well and stapled it into place. I then came in right after with some metal fencing. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. Again, I've linked it down below for you. I cut it off screen just with some metal snips, and I did it to size, and I kind of went more crazy with the staples with the metal versus the turf. I took that top frame after we did that and I put it right onto the base, and now you can see how you can now take this apart and clean it versus the ForRent.com one, which is all together and you kind of just spray on top and hope that it cleans everything beneath it. I added a fire hydrant because I'm extra for my dog, but all in all, I wanted to test this out with Callie. This is our first go, what you're about to see, but I have had it for 4 to 5 days and she treats it like a bed.
So the reason that I decided to build one of these for this dog is because she fell down the stairs when she was a puppy and like flipped onto her back, and I thought she was paralyzed. So I don't like leaving her out in the house, and she is quite mischievous. The bathroom that I made over for Paul and I, or like did a little update to, that's where she stays when I'm just gone for a little bit. I am home literally 24/7. I probably leave at most for like 2 to 3 hours, but even then I still don't want to like promote her trying to not go to the bathroom for that long. That's where this comes in. That's why I built it, just so I have a peace of mind as a dog owner. There you go, good girl. You go potty? Go potty, mama. Yeah, I don't necessarily know if she'll like use it. You totally can. She has got bladder infections from being in there even just for a little bit, because she's so used to having full access to her doggy door all the time. Yes, her 3rd birthday. That's what I did for her.
All in all, you get the point. I swear I'm talking way too much, but I just love this as a solution for, you know, an apartment patio, or maybe you live in a condo, or you don't have a huge backyard, or you want a specific area for your dog to go. Just a good option.
What do you think? Good talk.
Thank you so much to Home Depot for sponsoring today's video, and also sorry for the lisp that I have. I have like a canker sore on the bottom of my tongue. It's super awkward, but that's totally just a random side note. I hope that you guys enjoyed this DIY pet project. I love having Callie just all in the tutorial. I'll actually see you Friday for another DIY.